jump into it. Now, I did get the bio, so I'm just going to kind of toss it to you to kind of get
Oh,
us.
oh, 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 oh. You know what? I'm so sorry. I forgot.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I listen. That was a like to have.
Hmm.
I figured, worst case scenario. Well, I don't plan for worst case, but I
Hmm.
figured I'd throw it back to you. You can kind of give a little brief intro. So we'll just get going. Give me about. Do you have any questions before we get going?
No, I'll just go with flow.
Cool. Give me 2 seconds.
Okay.
All right, guys. Welcome to my Disney Brain. Today is, well, what is today? I don't even have my calendar in front of me. Today is February the 16th. And this is Kelly. I'm in the studio with special guests today. And I'm going to, I'm going to allow her to introduce herself in a few minutes. But I want to tell you, I'm excited about today's guest. I think we're going to learn a lot. And I'm going to tell you what the topic is so that you can kind of get a sense of what the value is going to be for listening today. And that is traveling to Walt Disney World during this pandemic time, during the time of COVID. So this person, our wonderful guest, has traveled, I think, twice during this time, and also has little bitties. So we can talk about safety precautions. We can talk about what it's like to travel during this time, what it's like to travel during this time with kids. What are some of the requirements? What are some of the things that we didn't anticipate that may happen? What does the park look like? What did you feel like when you came back in terms of was it worth it? So we're going to get into all of that today. So you make sure you stick around because we're going to have a very in-depth conversation. But before we get going, I'll just have a very simple call to action because I really want to jump into the conversation. And that is to please like, subscribe, and share. Those of you who have continued to support my Disney Brain, thank you so much. We do really enjoy bringing you content like this that we feel that's going to help you and kind of guide you to your successful trip to Disney, whether it is Disneyland when they open back up or Walt Disney World. So today's show is particularly interesting to me because I'm planning a trip this year. I didn't go, as all of you know, last year for my birthday, which is kind of broke a streak. I don't know how many years, but we broke a streak last year. So that means we got to do it extra nice this year. I will tell you that the guest, I started following her on Instagram, and she fits the profile of family that looks like mine, cutest kids you're ever going to see, and loves Disney. So that's pretty much all it took. And I really enjoyed the content, and I continue to enjoy the content with Miss Denysha. So Miss Denysha, welcome to my Disney Brain, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me on your show. I definitely enjoy listening to the podcast. It's very informative, and just a plug I highly recommend to anyone that's wanting to travel to the parks to definitely listen to this podcast. But as you stated, my name is Denysha. I go by Imagineer Mom on all of my social media platforms. I am a blogger, currently going under a rebrand right now. But I basically blog about travel, lifestyle, Disney, because, my family, we literally live a Disney lifestyle. It's a part of our everyday life. We incorporate, I like to call it daily doses of magic into, our everyday normal life. So just mainly blogging about our adventures to the park, little cute finds that we find in the store, cute outfits, Disney clothes, anything that you can think of Disney, we probably have it covered.
Yeah. I think one of the first questions I messaged you online was, were you a cast member? Because I thought, oh my gosh, she's got all this stuff and she's so I said, are you a cast member? Now, were you ever a cast member, or are you a cast member?
I was not, and I was never. I kind of wish, looking back, I'm always, and that's kind of how Imagineer Mom, the inception came about, of course, being a mother. And I always have, I want my kids to do whatever they want to do in life, but it would be amazing if they grew up to be little Imagineers. So
That's
it's
awesome.
something that really resonated. And, the babies, the preteen, they love Disney. So that's definitely, more of the reason why, my name is Imagineer Mom on my social media platforms.
Cool, cool. Yeah, I tell you, listen, I have some Disney stuff in my house, but I'm telling you, you're gonna have to do some serious shopping to keep up with Miss Denysha, because kitchen, living room, Christmas was bananas. I was looking forward to your post every day. I actually was trying to keep up with you. I don't know if you noticed. I was trying to get my good camera out and keep up with Mr. Denysha. So why don't you do this? Follow Imagineer Mom on Instagram. You will not be disappointed. Great content. I think, Denysha, you go live quite often and you talk about a couple of different things, but mostly about, the magic. So do you want to talk a little bit about that piece?
Sure. So my fellow content creator, Courtney, we came up with the idea to, there's a lot of lives and shows, quote unquote, that go on Instagram. And it really happened during the pandemic. So, you're sitting in the house, you're bored, you're trying to figure out how to keep creating content, how to stay relevant. Why not go live and talk to your audience? So we kind of came up with the idea to start interviewing smaller creators because, in our personal opinion, the smaller creators weren't really getting their time to shine.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to sit down and have conversations. And there's so much you can find out from people that you normally wouldn't find out because you just really, just to be honest, some people may not take them seriously, or, they're just kind of overlooked because of all the bigger creators that we have in the Disney space. So our main objective to start the lives and chit chat with other small creators were to just, add some camaraderie. We want people to know that they matter. We want to know more about their pages. It's just really exciting finding out about different people.
Right. Yeah. You know what? That's very similar to what we do here at My Disney Brain. I think it's probably why we, gel and have been able to connect. We started March the 19th will be 2 years for us.
Okay.
And we just initially did it for the love of Disney. And then after that, I started thinking, okay, you want to be relevant and you want to bring some value, of course. But I said, what? There's so many folks out here in the space. I don't know if you ever thought this, particularly as people of color thing, because sometimes I go to the park and I'm like, but then other times I'm thinking, there's got to be more of us enjoy this and love this. And so when I got into the space, I started seeing more and more, folks that looked like us.
Yeah.
And so I said, man, why don't I bring some of these people on the show? And that's how I met Nicole and Corey, Road Tripping with the Roots. That's how I met Mark, LOL, Mark Daniel. He actually is a cast member at Disney. It's how I met Ruby's Best Life. She, brings content on the show. So I've had the opportunity, and now yourself, we've had the opportunity to meet so many great people in this space. It's just really been an awesome, awesome journey. So it brings us back every week, and we try to be as active as we can on social media. Honestly, my girls are much better at social media than I am. Some days it's a little much for me consistently, but my girls can get on and they can just create stuff. And it takes me a while to find these stickers and all the sound effects and all that. I'm like, you guys got to
leave it up to them, right?
Yeah. So here's what I like to do. I always ask people. I can sense, I can feel, and I've seen your lives. I've seen your page, so I know you absolutely have the love for Disney. My question is, does your mate, did your husband feel this way when you guys first got together, or how did that go?
Well, he really didn't. He had been to the park, I think maybe twice, and it was just one park. Like, I think that every time they went just went to Magic Kingdom.
Okay.
It really didn't hit him until, if I could honestly say, maybe these last, probably because we took a couple strip in January. I think it really start hitting him like, there's you can experience Disney in a different way. And it's not just just going to the parks, riding rides. Like, he genuinely likes it. And I find him now, we just booked 2 more trips for this year right now. That's just the family trips, not our solos and things like that. But he really likes it. And he's getting his buddies like, hey, let's go to Disney. His dentist friends, he's like, you guys, does the family want to go to Disney? We can book a trip. But he really likes it because we've experienced so much outside of the parks with Disney. He's I think I got him on board now. He loves it.
Well,
he
good.
loves it. Oh yeah. And I'm not mad at it because it makes planning trips 10 times easier. Because at first it was kind of like, okay, she wants to go, we'll just go. But now he's the one saying, okay, are we booking some trips? When are we going? What are the dates? So he's on board now. 100%.
He's
oh yeah.
Big. Okay, yeah. that kind of reminds me. I know Main Street Dad. He was one of the first guests on the show, and he didn't come to Disney until he was, an adult. He was in his 30s. But man, he was they live in Orlando too. It helps. So he was in the park like every day. He would be telling me, he's experiencing this, and then Star Wars opened. I mean, him and his kids, they were just really experiencing it together for the first time. So it was really something great to see. His wife, of course, she kind of grew up going to the park. She was, I want to say at some point, she was either a cast member or in the college program. But she was very familiar with the parks. And I think she may have even lived in the area. Now, I'm in Atlanta. You're where it snows, so neither of us are very close to the park. So how do you get your main Disney fix?
It's hard because I always want to be in the parks or somewhere in the vicinity, even if it's Disney Springs. But if I'm, just at home, we can't go anywhere. I mostly binge a lot of Disney Plus. I make sure I'm, if I have the time, I'm looking at my favorite Disney accounts on social media, just pushing out blogs because, when I write, that brings up, all the fun memories. So, writing blogs, but definitely I'm really big on, I love Disney movies. My favorite Disney movie, I have 2, would be Cinderella and Beauty and the Beast. And I can watch those over and over all day. So I love Disney Plus is probably the best thing that could have happened to us.
Yeah. We have to do a separate podcast and talk Disney Plus because I don't know if you heard me talk about it, but I can go on for days about it. I'm not, yet getting commission from them, but man, it's the thing. So let's jump into for today. So, we learned a little bit about Miss Denysha. And again, I'm just going to encourage you to go and please follow her on Instagram at Imagineer Mom, just the way it sounds, Imagineer Mom, and you'll find her. In terms of traveling to the parks, so you are one of very few people that I know that have gone since all of this has, kind of happened. You hear the concerns, whether it is, now I'm assuming you guys flew, you may have driven, I don't know.
We've done both.
Okay. So we'll talk a little bit about the travel piece and how does that play into it. So people are concerned about, one, being on an airplane for an extended amount of time. What happens, when I get to the resort? Are you comfortable staying in the hotel rooms? What measures do you take to make sure it's safe and it's clean? Is it okay to travel with kids? So these are everything that's out there. This is what people are facing this year as they try to ramp up and get back to the parks. And this is what I'll be facing, except I don't have the small ones. So let's start at the beginning, travel. So you've done both air and car, it seems like. So the car probably is, just a no-brainer. As long as you don't pick up any hitchhikers, should be no new car. But air travel. So talk to us about how you got to the parks through air and what your experience was like.
Okay. Well, with air travel, it's definitely, I like to tell people, depending on your level of comfortability, you have to be very cautious and comfortable all in the same breath if you're going to fly. Um, you know, for the most part, before we even, you know, get ready to leave for Disney, we always, well, my husband and I, because the babies are too young to take COVID tests, but we always get a voluntary COVID test, just to be on the safe side because we just want to rule out everything. We usually quarantine until we get ready to go to the airport. And then from there, all the airports that I've been in a Chicago airport, which is the really large airport, a local airport, and then, of course, the Orlando airport. They're very, I'm not going to lie, there's some people, they're not as strict in the airport.
Okay.
You can sit stationary, eat your food, take your mask off, things of that nature. You do see the random person walking around with a mask below their nose. But again, it's, you're in a big area, so you're not
Yeah.
crammed on top of each other. So, I mean, I guess it's not too much of a big deal in one breath, but it is.
Right.
As far as on the plane, this is where you have to really be comfortable because on certain airlines, I'll just use Frontier, for example. We've flown Frontier and American Airlines. They all book all of their seats. So I know Delta, until the end of March, they are not booking middle seats. So if you're traveling by yourself, you don't have to worry about sitting directly with someone. But on Frontier and American, they sit people next to you. Now, I was in a situation this past a couple weeks ago when we went to Universal. It was myself and my oldest, and I did have someone sitting next to me. But the people that sat next to me, they don't give you food on the plane. You can eat if you want, but I think a lot of people are so paranoid. They don't want to keep taking their mask up and down. So both of the women that I sat next to kept their mask on above their nose the entire time. And it was kind of funny because one of them that was sitting next to my husband when we went in January, she was kind of crouched over in the window. I was like, that's probably not going to do anything, but I understand. But you have to really be comfortable on a plane. It's a quick flight for us. It's about 2 hours. But longer flights, I would probably book the middle seat and another seat, just being totally honest. Because you are really close to people when you are on the plane. And as far as, when you land in the airports in Orlando, the Magical Express, they have, your name, and they seat you strategically on the bus. So you're not right behind somebody and you're not right next to somebody in your row.
Okay.
So luckily, I don't know how they do it. Maybe they just do it based on volume, but every time that we've rode any complimentary transportation for Universal and for Disney, they don't have you sitting directly behind somebody or next to somebody.
Okay.
And it was pretty seamless. I really haven't been real anxiety driven or stressed regarding COVID in the airports at all. But whenever you get to your hotel, Disney offers contactless check-in, which is amazing. And I have not had one time that I've dealt with my room not being ready when I get there. It's always ready. You just go through the lobby, or depending on what type of hotel you're going to, just walk around the building and you just go straight to your room, unless you have to stop at the front desk. But the contactless check-in, they make everything super smooth.
So what do they tell you about, because getting to the hotel, what do they tell you about the room preparation? For example, I'm going to be traveling for the first time in, I don't know, and this is a longer flight than 2 hours. So, but the hotel, the room that we've stayed in, no one would have stayed in the room for a certain period of time. And then while we're there, the rooms adjacent to us will be empty and these sorts of things. Did you get the sense, or did you get information from Disney similar to that? And I guess the first question should be, did you stay on property?
Yes, we stayed on property. Every single time that we go, we never not stay on property. only because we love the complimentary transportation. So we always stay on property. And, Disney tells us that they thoroughly clean the rooms. They make sure that your remotes are sanitized. So when you go in the room, everything's in a bag. And they don't have all of the amenities in the rooms that they used to have. They have the shampoo that's in the showers, but all the extra soap. What else was in there? They don't have coffee pots. So they take out a lot of extra things to kind of cut down on you using and touching a lot of things in the room.
Right.
And as far as cleaning services, they don't clean your hotel during your stay. They only clean prior to your arrival and after you leave. So if you want any towels or anything like that, you have to request them, and they'll bring them up to you in like a bag. The person just comes to your door or drops it off in the front of your door.
Okay. So did you guys feel like you needed to bring any extra sanitizer or anything like that to spray, or how did that go?
The first time that we traveled, for the very first time after all of this happened, I did. I brought gloves. I had the wipes, spray, the whole 9 yards. I walked into the room, just spraying down everything. But that's because I hadn't stayed anywhere outside of my house since this had, all happened. So I wasn't really sure about the cleanliness, even though we always know or assume Disney is super clean. You just don't know.
You just don't know.
So after that first initial stay, I was more comfortable because they are very clean and very cautious. Even when you're, just walking around in the pool area or in the cafeteria area, there's always someone, just like in the parks, just wiping things down constantly. So they definitely do make you feel safe. Now, I will say that I still take those with me. Maybe not the spray, but I do take the wipes.
The wipe.
Gloves. And sanitizer. And I just keep that with me on my person at all times.
Yeah, I think if you're driving, it's easier if you have access to Lysol, stuff like that, to take it obviously on the plane. That's good. Bad. But okay, so let me ask you this: in the hotels themselves, is the mask a requirement anytime you're moving around the hotel? And the only time I understand that you can kind of be absolved of that if you're eating or dining in a stationary location.
Yes, if you're in the pool, actually physically in the pool, or if you are eating. So that's the only time. If you just go from your room to the end of the hallway, you have to have your mask on anywhere you go in the resort.
Okay. Well, that's good, because I know some. I don't want to call the name of this. This wasn't Disney related, but it was a really nice resort we were planning to go to last year in Orlando, Kissimmee area. I said, well, we kind of leave that up to the guests. It's not really mandatory. And I was like,
that's a no-go.
So no, you can go ahead and cancel mine. So let's talk about Walt Disney World. So you're obviously a veteran. One of the things that we do here is we always try to help people who I try to think of every guest who could be listening, every person that could listen to the podcast. So I always kind of get to the baseline of a person who's never been, God bless them, and now this is their first planning, and they're planning in a period that's a little, funky. And now they got to understand Park Pass reservation system and all these other things. So what was your planning like? I know it's fun for us.
Oh yeah.
But for somebody new with all this going on, how can we consolidate and make it simple, for a first timer, if you will?
I honestly, I'm gonna plug myself a tiny bit, but not because this is two different brands, but I do Disney travel outside of my Imagineer Mom. So I tell people that haven't been to the park and are rookies, quote unquote, it's probably best to deal with a travel agent right now. But if they don't, then it's pretty easy because you don't have to worry about fast pass reservations right now. Your dining, if you know how to maneuver the system, you can do it yourself. But it's really not difficult. The way Disney has their reservation page laid out, It's pretty simple, but the only thing is, depending on when you're going, is when it gets tricky. Because during your holiday seasons, that's where it gets hard sometimes to get park reservations.
Yeah.
Because even, right now, it's kind of just wide open. They're not at, they're 35% capacity if that's what it's still at. But it's really hard to get those reservations when you hit probably, I want to say, when does the Halloween party? Probably end of September through the beginning of January. You're going to have a hard time trying to find reservations depending on when you're going. Like, a lot of people want to go the week of Christmas or the week of Thanksgiving, not knowing that that's probably, I mean, if you just want to chance that's probably not the best time to go. And it's going to be hard to find a park reservation. So always, since Disney lets you see if the park availability is open for that day, I like that feature instead of just blindly booking and hoping that a reservation is open for your family.
Well, see, that's the part that's changed, obviously. Not only do you have to have your hotel reservation, but it has to coincide with the available park. So people, you have to be clear that now you have to have these 2 reservations. Before, you just purchase your ticket, you're pretty good. I mean, if you go Christmas Day, you're rolling the dice because it could hit capacity. But other than that, you're pretty much wide open, and the parks are just going to be busy after September 1. Parks are just busy that time of year. So I just learned something, but I didn't know you did Disney travel. So plug yourself really big so I can, reach out to you at some point and get some advice too, because I only know one other. Oh Lord! And now her Instagram thing is kind of falling out of my mind. I think it'll come to me. You do your plug. I'll see if I can find it.
No, you're fine. I've been I only do, well, I won't say only. I can do Carnival cruises. I do all Disney locations in Universal. But I mainly just focus on Disney because that's what, people come to me for. But I've been a travel agent since, I want to say, when was it? 2019. So when I first hit my full year of being a travel agent, COVID happened. So that kind of ruined my dreams, but it's okay. But I work for an agency called Walt Express Travel. They're based out of Alabama, and it's a really awesome agency. And I love it. Like, it's fun. Some people don't like planning Disney vacations, especially prior to, them taking a lot of things away from the parks. Like, it's kind of, to someone that doesn't enjoy it, it could be a headache. Like, who wants to wake up to get a fast pass or wake up to make sure they can get a reservation to be our guest and, just kind of plan out their entire day. So some people don't, enjoy it. If they're just going just to say they went, then it's probably best to use a travel agent.
I've never used a travel agent. And the person I was speaking about, I'm going to plug her, is her tag is Diz Girl Magic.
Okay.
Andrea. This Girl Magic, Andrea, and she's been on the podcast before. So it was season 2. I can't remember exactly when, but if you scroll back through, you'll find it. And she said a lot of what you're saying. Now, I've never used a travel agent, and it's one of the things she was querying me about because I'm, a type A person. But I also know that there's something to having a travel agent and having that accessibility and comfort level, and then just being able to relax, because when you're planning it yourself, you're kind of, you're taking on all the responsibility and the everything that comes with that. I don't want to say stress because you should be having a good time, but you are concerned, okay, I want to make sure I book everybody for the reservation and not like 9 out of 10 because everybody wants to eat. You know what I mean? You want to do one of those deals. But I'm going to talk to you about that travel agent piece. I didn't know that. I did not know that.
That's I don't. I originally started my page. I was gonna focus on travel, but I just tend to leave that on the Facebook side of things because that's where I just get most of my audience for my travel page. But yeah, I mean, if I'm gonna be going to Disney, my husband was like, "Why not? You can,
who told me that?
Get your money back."
Andrea told me the same thing. She's like, you should be doing this. Like, but you know what happens with, well, you know, because your family knows Denysha. Somebody's going to Disney, your family, I guarantee you, they call Denysha, figure out what we need to do, and that's what's happening. And that's what happens
always,
all the time. But I love it. I love talking about it. I could do it all day, which is why I started the podcast. Just kind of go back to a question I was asking you earlier. For me, each year, you know, wait until November just got longer and longer. And I was like, you know, getting your Disney fix. So that's when I really got into podcasts. I was spending a lot of time in my cars because I was traveling. So the longer the podcast, the better. And I would just find Disney and anybody that was doing Disney podcast, well, not anybody, but, you know, for the most part, there were some pretty good podcasters out there. And one of the people who was my mentor, who I was fortunate enough to connect with and even have on the show, he's the reason why, in many ways, why I actually started this podcast, Lou Mangello, who's been doing it for 15 years or more. And he has like the #2 podcast on all of iTunes.
Wow.
So listening to that type of content, it really helps you stay in tune. It connects you still with the parks because we're not close. We just can't jump in well, I probably could, but your jump in the car is going to be
too long. That's too much of a jump.
Yeah, it just keeps you connected. So that's cool. So let me ask you this. Before all of this, fast passes, park hopping, everything's wide open, except for the reservations, of course. But you could do a lot of stuff. So this time, people are interested in knowing, okay, if I go to the park, because Disney's not offering you a discount because of COVID. It's not like the tickets are on sale. They're actually going up. So am I going to get my money's worth? The biggest concern that I hear is this. With no fast passes, I'm not going to be able to experience as much as I used to with the fast passes, but yet I'm still doing the same amount of spend.
I'm going to say I honestly enjoy being in the parks more now than I did pre-COVID. And that's one, the capacity level. You don't feel like you're just, walking on top of somebody. 2, your ride lines are way shorter than what they were.
Even without a fast pass.
Yep. Even without a fast pass. You're going to get your flight of passage. I think the longest, when was this? We went during Thanksgiving though. So it was during the holiday. The longest we waited, the first time we got on, because we went twice, was 75 minutes. But that's pretty normal for that ride. And then the second time around, 45 minutes. And it just started dropping. But we went right when the park opened. So, everybody, when they get to Animal Kingdom, they beeline to, those rides. So I really enjoy being in the parks right now. The only downside is that you can't just leisurely walk down Main Street with your Starbucks or, eating your churro. You have to, sit down somewhere and eat, which isn't a problem, but, sometimes it kind of sucks to force a drink down because, you're used to just being able to sip on it while you're walking around the park. So you really have to be super thirsty or super hungry when you decide to go buy something because you just have to sit there and eat it.
So let me ask you this thing. That's actually really good news. I was telling Ruby on our last podcast, I've always sort of fancied the idea of a reservation system. Now, of course, I never wanted this in terms of why we're having to go to it. But year after year, each time I go to the park, it seemed like it was getting busier and busier. And unlike you, we actually haven't stayed on property. We always stayed off property because the size of our family and the size of the rooms that we needed, the value wasn't there for me to stay on property.
Yeah, you'd be spending an arm and a leg for nothing.
Oh my God, arm, leg, foot, you name it.
The whole body.
I'm telling you, it just was like, seriously? Come on. Come on. So for us, in terms of the resort off property. So the value was there.
Mhm.
The concern, for me would be, okay, when we go back, are we going to be able to maneuver as quickly? So each year we started going back, and it seemed like our hotel, the resort we would stay at, it was like more and more and more people. And I said, wait a minute, we found this sweet spot
Mhm.
after kids go back to school, but before Thanksgiving, where the holiday decorations were, Christmas trees were up. But
Mhm.
but really, the first couple times we went, it was like, okay, we could go through and not be all up against people. But as the years went by, oh my word, it just,
Mhm.
even the hotel was packed.
Yep.
It just was like people found out, and all of a sudden now there's no. I said all that to say this: it didn't appear before COVID that there was any downtime. Even in January, there
Mhm.
was no downtime. There used to be a time you could look at Main Street and say, that's a January picture, or
Mhm.
oh, that's December. Now it was like, I don't even know. That could
Yep.
very well be January.
It's
So,
it's crazy. I
but you
like the
said
reservation
when you
system.
go back now, we don't necessarily have to be that concerned about, the wait times, and
Mhm.
also the space gives us some respite.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's definitely, it's better in my opinion. I feel like all the cleaning and all the measures that they're doing, they need to keep them in place, quite honestly, especially the ride lines, the markers. I love them because you do get some of those people, like I think I had put in my stories, um, the first time I went after being in quarantine for however long we were, the world was closed. Um, there were some people that like it's typically the larger parties because it's harder to kind of stay in this little area with the markers. So I tell people do with what you're comfortable. If someone is still close to you or if there's a larger party in front of you, stay a marker behind. I mean, the people in front of you, in the back of you, what are they going to do? They're just going to stay on the marker they're at. So, you can really make your own level of comfortability in the park,
Yeah,
especially in the ride queue, because that's typically where it gets the most congested.
yeah,
But they're doing an amazing job in the ride queues. When you get inside the buildings for some rides, they have the plexiglass up to divide everyone in their specific lines. So they're definitely trying to keep it as safe as possible. And then even with the cast members, they're literally, I don't know if they hired these people specifically, but they're Johnny on the spot. Put your mask over your nose. You can't take your mask down when you're taking a picture.
yeah,
They will interrupt an entire picture to tell someone to put their mask up.
yeah,
So I really like Disney is on top of it,
yeah.
100%.
Well, it's funny you say that. A week or so ago, they came out with the new guidelines, and that was, sorry, you got to be taking your pictures in front of the castle now
Mhm.
with your mask.
Yep.
And a lot of these, you can't just wear, the gator and all that stuff had already been discussed, but they had to,
Mhm.
bring it back up. And a few other measures. So if you guys want to check that out, check out a week ago's podcast where we went through that in the news and talked about
Mhm.
all those updates. Let me ask you this, Denysha, because a lot of folks do want to know. Okay, if me and my husband come, that's one thing we can maneuver. But what about with the little people? What was the experience like bringing your smaller kids? Well, just bringing your kids to Walt Disney World after all this time and under these conditions. How old are your little ones, by the way?
1, 2, and 11.
I kept making them twins.
They're basically twins. We call them the twins.
I kept saying, are they twins? Yeah,
Mhm.
they are so cute. And
Thank you.
I don't know what you're giving them, but boy, they're staying still for those pictures.
They do. They hate it, but they'll stay still. They're very cooperative when they want to be. I say that. Yeah. But
Yeah,
it was we did a lot of because I knew that eventually I was like, okay, we're not going to be in the house forever. We'll probably be wearing masks for a little bit. So I need to start getting my kids trained to keep a mask on their face. So that would start with like little spurts going to the grocery store, teaching um, even the 1 year old, he'll even keep a mask on, but teaching them how to keep a mask on their face. And honestly, I didn't have any issues in the park, And it was warmer when we took them in November. And they kept the mask on the entire time. I mean, they took it off when we were stationary or when we were eating, but other than that, if your child, you have to get them ready to be in a park for a long day wearing a mask. You have to take frequent, breaks, so that it's just not on their face the entire time. But if your child does not wear a mask now, don't expect them to wear a mask while they're in the park. It's going to be impossible to have them keep on a mask.
Started early. So in terms of the character interactions, of course, everything's different. So the Disney's calling it, social distance selfie, if you're able to get that at all. And of course, there are no parades, they're cavalcades. So I wanted to get your opinion as a mom and as a person who's traveled during this time. Is it that big of a deal, or what was your feeling about the cavalcades as opposed to the parades? What's your feeling about the interaction with the characters? Is it still, maintaining the magic?
I feel like yes. When I heard that I remember I was telling the client, this was their first trip, and I said, well, there's not going to be parades, and she was so bummed. And I could kind of understand, because I did love the parades; they were really nice. But after experiencing the cavalcades, I will take a cavalcade for the rest of my life over a parade, hands down. It's quick. It's to the point. You're not sitting there all day just waiting on something. You get your little bit of magic and you go on about your business. I love the cavalcades. Love them.
Nice.
I would hope that it's something that they would decide to keep, but they may not, because your parades, you have everyone centered in one location.
Yeah.
Huddled up and stopping traffic, and it's just congested. I love the cavalcades. I didn't think I was gonna like them at first, because I did love the parades, but the cavalcades are 10 times better. So if Disney, if you happen to listen to this, just keep them. But
well, listen, I'm with you, and from the standpoint of the parades being a bottleneck and a clog. However, I've been in the parks on Christmas Day, and so I've experienced the Mickey's That's So Very Merry Christmas parade, and I haven't been to the Halloween parade, but those are massive draws for the after-hour events. And if they replace those, they're going to have to really be creative in either duplicating that or one-upping it, because those are massive draws. I was really made aware of that this year when they didn't happen, because from an economic standpoint, that really was the biggest reason why those layoffs had to take place when they did before Christmas. Yep. But anyway, the cavalcades, good. The character interaction, I think, are good. What about were there any projections or anything on the castle when you were there?
Yes, it was actually I think the last time we went, they still had Christmas decorations up. It was in January. They still had Christmas decorations up, which was super odd. But they did in November, they had the projections on the castle. And, I liked it. It was something different than the lights. And, Disney always finds a way to still make it look nice. And I know that they stopped fireworks because they didn't want, partly because of layoffs, but, also not wanting people congregating in areas. But you still kind of get that when the castle display goes on. So that's one of those things where you have to make yourself comfortable. We decided to kind of be more towards Casey's instead of further up by the castle, because everyone was just located in that one area. Right. Yeah.
I think for the time being, to your point, that, anything that's going to create a bottleneck in crowds is being reimagined, and will stay reimagined until we get on the other side of this.
Oh yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. So I'm hoping that the listeners are getting, Ruby and I talked about this last week. You have to adjust your expectations. If this is your first time, then you don't have anything to base it on. Right. If you're returning, then this is the listener that I'm talking to. You have to adjust your expectations. This fireworks on Main Street and that big kiss goodnight, not happening.
Mm-hmm.
However, there may be a couple small smooches on the way out the door that you may really, really enjoy more than that. And I think to Denysha's point too, we probably all have fancy being in Magic Kingdom and the crowds being to the point where we could just maneuver and go and feel much freer. And it sounds like that's kind of where we are, whether we're at 35% or 50%, who really knows? If it's where we can still, get to the magic and feel that Disney fix, then I feel comfortable still keeping and going this year on my trip. So I'm actually excited to talk to you about that. I'm excited that you feel the way that you do.
Yeah, it'll be super. And this is coming from a person that was very paranoid, I would say, in the beginning. But I never had, Lord willing, and thank God we never, it hasn't touched our household. We're very cautious and, make sure you keep your hand sanitizer when you're in the parks. And that's another great thing before you get on the ride. Now, Disney doesn't do this, but oddly, Universal does. Before anyone gets on the rides in Universal, they have a hand sanitizer person that squirts your hands before you get on the ride. Disney just has the little machines, and sometimes those are hit or miss if it's empty or not. But just make sure you have to take precautions for yourself. You can't just rely on Disney to do everything for you. But for the most part, they're doing their part, because even with tables at quick service locations, you can't sit at every table. They have some tables blocked off, which, is causing some congestions, like on the wall areas, because you're just trying to find somewhere to sit, because you can't sit at every table at the quick service locations right now. But they're definitely, doing their part in trying to keep the parks open.
Did you find that many of the kiosks and we know Casey's has been closed since,
I'm so mad. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not the only one. Because it's such a favorite. So some of those closures that are still in place, for example, with Flower and Garden. So there are a number of folks that I follow that vlog the parks. And one of the consistent things that I see and hear is that during the week, it's really hit or miss on some of the food options. But on the weekends, it seems like, all the kiosks or the majority of the kiosks are open. And of course, we know that it has to do with capacity. Number one, more people are coming. But number two, I don't think they can man everything because of the layoffs and everything that they've had. So they have to, kind of divvy out the hours the way that they need to in order to meet the demand at the time. Is that the way that you felt when you were there?
Yeah, you can tell there's a big difference from the weekdays to the weekends. Even though, there's more people in the park, and of course they're trying to cater to all those people in the park and they want their money. So they're definitely ramping up staff on the weekends so that they could, open more of those quick service locations. Oh yeah, for sure.
Cool. So let's talk about food and extracurricular. I will tell you this. I outside of, let me see, what's the big Disney Plus and Disney Springs are like neck and neck for me. I love Disney Springs. I would not be going to Walt Disney World without going to Disney Springs. As a matter of fact, this is our first stop. Our travel day is never wasted. Whenever we get our luggage and all that stuff done and everybody's situated and showered or whatever we're going to do, we know where we're eating. We're heading right to Disney Springs. I don't care what time it is. We usually go there first. Or is that kind of you guys' ritual as well? And how was it at Disney Springs?
My husband loves Disney Springs. So same as you guys, whenever we get there, we typically don't go to the parks. We go straight to Disney Springs. Disney Springs does have similar procedures. So before you enter, they do check your temperatures. You have to have a mask on the entire time that you're walking around Disney Springs. Now, the only thing with them, they don't have as many people just out freely monitoring everyone. For the most part, everyone was, following the rules. You had your random person that didn't have a mask on or was trying to pull their mask down and take a drink while they were walking, things like that. But they didn't have the extra staff to monitor what people were doing because, I don't know how they do that there, but
Yeah.
it definitely, it's a little different. It's not bad.
Right.
Again, it's one of those places where you can kind of choose how comfortable you want to be.
Yeah.
But it's more probably because it's smaller, so it seems more congested, but it's really not. I believe, I don't know if I didn't see anyone doing any type of counting, so I want to say there's probably not much of a capacity at Disney Springs. And
Right.
there's no reservation, so I don't know how they're monitoring how many people are
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. Let me ask you this though, because people love to eat at Disney Springs.
Mm-hmm.
What was your experience? If I'm assuming you guys go there to eat as well,
Mm-hmm.
for example, Deluxe or Blaze or somewhere like that, is that
Mm-hmm.
a situation where you go in and sit down with, Blaze is not that big of a place as it is. So if you start roping out tables, basically you're going to have 2 or 3 families and everybody else going to have to sit outside. So what was your experience eating at Disney Springs?
It was good. We ate at the House of Blues, and I don't want to say this is my first time eating at this other place, so that's why I can't remember the name. I don't know if it was like a country type soul foodish. What was it? Was it something
Was it right
Smith?
next to House of Blues?
Was it? I'm trying to think. I can't even remember. Where was this place? I don't even remember, but it was real like home type food.
Oh, you're talking about Chef Oprah's chef over at Homecoming.
Yes, Homecoming. Yes, we ate at Homecoming and we ate at House of Blues. And for House of Blues, we ate outside on the patio area. I probably would have preferred inside because the patio area is right next to, we were actually on the patio and not on the concrete area at the tables.
Okay.
But we were right next to the outside bar. So, there were people kind of walking around and doing whatever without a mask because they were drinking. So I probably would have opted to just sit inside or on the concrete area, away from them. But the House of the House of Blues was okay. It wasn't bad. Homecoming was good. I felt totally comfortable in Homecoming. And we also ate at what is it? That Hard Rock is at Universal. Is Hard Rock at Disney Springs also?
Planet Hollywood is at
Planet Hollywood. That's what it is. We ate at Planet Hollywood, and amazing. They have so many seating options. You don't have to worry about feeling
it's a big
certain kind of way. Right.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Well, cool beans. Cool. Yeah. Well, that's really nice. So it sounds like overall you guys had a really good time. You had to take your precautions from traveling to hotel to the parks, but it sounds like the magic is still there. Good news. We just have to it's kind of like driving, it's not enough to learn how to drive. You got to, make sure you drive for everybody else too.
Exactly.
So,
that's what it is. Yeah. You have to do your part. You have to.
Yeah. Adjusting your expectations. And I tell people, I say, it doesn't mean that you're not going to have a good time. It's just that I don't want you to be disappointed to get down there to know. Here's one of the reasons I thought listening to podcasts before I started podcasts was of value to me. So this is why I try to provide the same information to other people. If you're on your way to Walt Disney World or Disneyland or wherever, and someone tells you they're changing out the ride vehicles on your favorite attraction, you know that before you get to the park.
Right.
So you're not, what I'm saying? Your expectations have been adjusted so you don't get disappointed at the door.
Yep.
So when you listen to this podcast and what Denysha is telling us, take the information and apply it and just say, okay, yeah, we can still do this. We can still make this happen because I'm still of the mind the park still needs our money. We want this to outlast this unpleasantness. And we've got to go like we normally would go and solicit and still, pay our annual dues.
Yes, because quite honestly, if we're not going to the parks, Disneyland isn't open, and it hasn't been for quite some time. If we're not, spending our money in some way at Disney, it's probably selfish as it sounds. There probably won't be a Disney.
Yeah,
it's hard to sustain all of that.
Listen, one of the reasons why I push Disney Plus so much is because of offsetting some of what's going on with the parks. Listen, you and I are going to have to schedule two or three more podcasts. It sounds like to talk these things into place. But is there anything else that you may want to share with because you are an agent? Questions that you hear that are common now versus before. I'm sure people asking little different questions now. Some of the more common things that you can share with someone if it's their first time or if they're just returning and it's going to feel like their first time. What's some key advice maybe to give to someone to say, hey, yeah, here's what I tell you to do?
Well, I know a lot of the main concern is, even for first timers or people that haven't been to the park in a while, everyone goes to Disney for the magic because it's just the best experience ever. And I just want people to know that it's still there. It's just slightly modified. They still do their best to give you the most amazing experience. You still have your characters. You may not be able to go up and hug Mickey Mouse or Minnie Mouse, but you're still seeing your characters. You can take your social distance pictures with your characters. So Disney definitely, it's still magical. It's still Disney. It's just a slight modification. And, as long as everyone is doing their part, hopefully we can come out on the other side of this and, we can get back to whatever normal is going to look like and get back to some of those things.
Well, I'm ever the optimist. And I do think with vaccines and all these other things that are coming into play and people behaving themselves and doing what, like you said, what they're supposed to do, all of this works out for us getting beyond this and to that new normal. And we can bring a lot of that magic with us as well, So I would encourage folks to still go. Like I said, I've got a trip planned, and I'm hopeful that I can sneak in more than one. But I've got to get that first one under my belt to get that comfort level with my.
It's just gonna take that first one.
Yeah, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to be calling you because I still have some questions. So. Tell us again where we can find you on Instagram and where we can find you on Facebook, because if folks are saying, hey, you convinced me, Denysha, you convinced me, Kelly, I'm ready to book, where can they contact you on Facebook?
On Facebook, my page is Walt Express Travel by Denysha. I also have my Imagineer Mom page on Facebook, and it's on Instagram. And like Kelly said, Imagineer Mom is spelled exactly how it sounds.
Cool. Just look for the cute kids. The kids, I mean, they are just precious. So that's really great. So, all right. Well, Miss Denysha, thank you so much for joining us. Guys, I hope you have, learned a lot. I hope we've answered some questions for you. This will not be, Denysha, you have an open pass.
I'll be back.
Please be back because you have a wealth of information. We have at least a few more topics we can talk about. If I get you and Ruby on here at the same time, we will have a marathon going because
that'll be fun. I could talk all day. You can talk all day. We'll just keep it going. We can talk all day.
And your friend, what did you say her name was?
Courtney.
I owe her a phone call.
Okay.
I owe her a phone call because I've got to apologize. We connected on Instagram and I didn't know, I saw you guys live and a few weeks later somehow we connected and I was supposed to reach back out to her and I got all these messages in my your DM or whatever the thing is. I couldn't remember what her tag was, what her thing was.
She has a lot of underscores on hers. I want to say I know it's Courtney Marie, but there's some underscores. I can send you a DM in with her name.
Because I said, she's going to think I'm just the worst person. I said, I'm going to reach out after this, whatever. I think it's Fridays or something. And I couldn't find, I said, I get all these messages and then I just couldn't locate it. But anyway, thank you so much for being on. I've learned something and I know that our audience has as well. Guys, we will be back again next week, as we always are. We thank you in advance for continuing to like and subscribe and support My Disney Brain. So have a great week, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Miss Denysha. I'm going to edit this, the audio probably tomorrow.
Okay.
And so the podcast will be up sooner than the video. But any of the video, really any of the audio, whatever you like to do is certainly up to you. So take it and go with it.
Okay.
But yeah, I didn't know you were a travel agent.
Yeah, it's like my secret thing, because it's kind of a hairy thing with my Imagineer Mom page and that page. Like I have to keep it very separate. Like there was even, the owner of the travel agency wanted me to participate with being like one of their freelance writers on the blog. And I told her no, because that would interfere with what I was posting. So it's like, no, I'll just do the travel. And I think here shortly, depending on how things go, because things are starting to pick up in, the social media world for me, I may have to drop off of doing the travel agency. And my husband's like, well, just start your own. I was like, well, I mean, it's a good idea, but we'll see. That's a lot of work.
But listen, let's stay connected. Like I said, you're always welcome back. And I do want to learn a little bit more about that piece. And also, I guess we just got to talk, like sponsorships and other things. We have some things come our way with some other things. We're just learning how to do all of this social media stuff. And so a lot of times people will tell you, but I think it's more of they're trying to sell their service as opposed to actual, sponsorships and stuff like that. So we've got to get all out there. I think we've really built up a pretty good and dependable following. You just got to figure out a way to monetize it. So if you're open to having that conversation.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because that's where I'm at right now. It's all about if I'm going to be, your time is money. Yeah. So you need to monetize off your time. People don't go to work for free. Why do this for free? So yeah, there's definitely, yes.
Okay. Well, let's talk. I have your email and you have mine.
Yeah.
And we'll connect soon. So I'm gonna get you back to the babies, but thank you so much for your time.
No problem. Thank you for letting me come on.
All right. You have a good evening.
Same to you. Bye.
All right. Good night.